let's talk about role models and teachers, because I spent 19 years in the Virginia prison system, and there were people who taught me and helped me become the person I am today, and I wouldn't be that person if it weren't for them. The first person I met was Eric, who was an older guy who was real quiet, kind of kept to himself, but was brilliant. Like, he was an incredible writer, he had an incredible mind, and he cared about people. Like, that was one of the first conversations we had, because I was in that point where all I was doing was studying and working out. Like, I would go do my schoolwork, I would work out, I would watch TV, but like, I stayed away from people. Like, I was friendly, but I didn't want to have any kind of connections. And he pulled me aside one time. We were actually waiting. We were getting ready to go in the office to interview for a job. And he was like, yo, you can't do this alone. Like, you can't be an island. I know it feels good. It sounds like a great idea. But one day you're going to wake up from all those books and realize that life is about people and life is about connection. And that has always stuck with me. And that's one of the reasons, like, here where I'm at today, it's all about meeting people and having experiences and having interactions. Like, I don't want to do life alone. I've tried to do that, and it's miserable. It doesn't matter where you're at or how nice your surroundings are. It's a miserable place to be. Then I had Danny. He was a young kid who I never would have expected being, as wise as he was or changing my lives in the way that he did. But he had that life experience. Even though he was younger than me, he knew more about life than I did. He had a better understanding. He was able to stop and pause and experience. And he got me into meditation, and he got me back into martial arts. And again, he really changed my life. And I look at people like Brother Chavis, man, that man like rioted for better conditions or better treatment. That man spent years in the hole for better conditions and treatment. And I mean, he was a dangerous person back in his day. And who he became was a pacifist. He was somebody who was trying to teach people nonviolence. He was trying to calm down the gang issues. He was trying to calm down. He was basically trying to be a violence interventionist, like saying, hey, I've lived like that. It doesn't get us anywhere. We don't have to live like that. But that was somebody who was willing to put his life on the line for what he believed in. And then that evolved over time. So I was really fortunate to have those people over the years who taught me different ways to live, who taught me different ways to be, and I'm so grateful for that. I had, Mr. Kim, who taught me Taekwondo. I had the other guy who taught me boxing. I had the other guy, like, most of my stuff was around martial arts. I'm just going to be honest. I was a really big martial arts guy. But at the same time, it was also education. It was being able to network with people. It was, what Eric taught me about basically writing. I mean, he was an English major. This is what he did, and he was the one who basically made me focus on writing. Because the more I wrote, the better I got. The more able I was to convey an idea, the more able I was to describe something. And I realized that was really kind of where my power lied. Because I was in prison and I couldn't reach the outside world. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't make a bunch of money. But if I could tell these stories, I could change people's hearts. If I could share my thoughts or my ideas in a way that somebody could receive, like, I might be able to change people's minds. And that was when I realized, like, I wasn't powerless behind bars. Like, there was something that I could do. So I started writing essays. I got a couple published. I would write to local representatives. I would write to the governor. I would write to everybody because I wanted to have, whatever influence I could. And that was what the people taught me. It was that I had to be there, right? I had to accept where I was, wherever that is. Sitting right here today or sitting in prison, we have to first accept where we are, and then we have to recognize what we can do. And that was where I really saw something that I didn't imagine. That, like, you can be in prison and you can be happier. Like, largely, I was happier in prison than I was before. Like, as crazy as that sounds, I was so miserable as a kid that I was able to find a level of peace and a level of kind of understanding. It's not that I'm happier then than I am now, because I've grown out of that place and I've been able to come into the world and kind of blossom as a person, but I was definitely happier than I was when I was younger, and in a weird way that saved my life. And it was those people in there. It was never, I hate to say it, but it was never the staff that taught me. It was never the teachers. It was the people who had that lived experience. It was the mentors and the role models and the people who taught me about life and the ways that I needed to live it, or the ways I could live it to have a meaningful existence. And so that's one of the things that I try to share. If there's a way I can connect to a younger generation and pass those same messages on, or pass that same wisdom on to them, I just want to spare them the heartache, because I was one of those hard-headed kids. Like, people always say you're either a brick or a feather person. Some people, like, the first time a feather falls, they're like, man, I need to be careful, I want to change this. Then you have brick people. Like, man, I had to be beat over the head so hard to finally change my behavior and change the way that I was living. And it took me getting a 32-year sentence. It took me, like, reaching a new bottom inside to really change what I was doing, because I didn't know, and I was back and forth, and I was ambivalent, and I was lost. So the people in prison really saved my life and really helped me become the person that I am today. And again, if we can find those people in our lives before prison, that's one of the reasons I really like the peer mentoring program and the peer support program, and that I'm doing the reentry. But our nonprofit is also going to try to reach out and reach the children of people who are incarcerated, because they have one of the highest incarceration rates of the world. So we can provide them support and wisdom and guidance before they get to that point. Hopefully we can save some lives. We can save some pain, both for them and for the victims they would potentially create. Because again, it's about reducing violence, reducing pain, reducing trauma. We're trying to heal the world, and I think it starts with ourselves.